Talktainmentradio.com.
We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalktainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. And we got something very interesting that we're going to talk about in this edition. But first, let's bring in.
Go ahead. Make my day.
That's what we need. We need to be able to make our day always, whatever that means. Mr. Neely Fuller, how are you doing, sir?
I'm still learning.
All right. One of the things, Mr. Fuller, that God, I don't even know where to begin on some of this stuff because there's so many things to listen. But there was an article that actually, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Mr. Fuller. An article came out, and it's just now making the rounds 5 years later, which is very interesting, from a website called Mail Online. Are you familiar with it, Mr. Fuller?
Haven't heard about it.
Okay, it comes out, it's out of the UK, United Kingdom, Great Britain. And in this article, they say something very interesting. I'm reminded of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing on this, who I think was one of the more prominent people that began way back in the early 70s with the Cress theory on color confrontation to begin to talk about some of these issues like this. But I remember for a long time, everybody said, "Oh, y'all just crazy, and you don't know." Hold on here for a minute. I got a little problem. I got to correct this. That you're just crazy, and you don't know exactly what it is that you're dealing with, or what it is that you're talking about. And the article is entitled, "All Blue-Eyed People Can Be Traced Back to One Ancestor Who Lived 10,000 years ago near the Black Sea." Now, this is written by a guy by the name of Michael Hanlon out of Mail Online. Now, he works in the science and tech. He writes in the science and tech section of this online newspaper. Now, this is a regular newspaper out of Great Britain. Very interesting stuff that they say here. And, Mr. Fuller, I'm going to read just a portion of it. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to read just a portion. It says, and this is not me or Mr. Fuller's writing. This comes directly from Mail Online, and you can go there and type in the name Michael Hanlon, Hanlon. He says, everyone with blue eyes can be traced back 10,000 years ago to the Black Sea region. Throughout history, they have been the eyes that are prized. Frank Sinatra's were legendary. Paul Newman's melted a million hearts, while Cameron Diaz's dazzle in modern Hollywood. But how and why blue eyes arose has always been something of a genetic mystery until now. According to a team of researchers from Copenhagen University, a single mutation which arose as recently as 6 to 10,000 years ago was responsible for all blue-eyed people alive on Earth today. The team, whose research is published in the Journal of Human Genetics, identified a single mutation in a gene called OCA2, which arose by chance somewhere around the northwest coast of the Black Sea in one single individual about 8,000 years ago. Now, he goes on to say the gene does not make blue in the iris. Rather, it turns off the mechanism which produces brown melanin pigment. Originally, we all had brown eyes, says Dr. Hans Eichberg, who led the team, and most people still do. The finding that a rare mutation, probably dispersed in the rapid wave of colonization that followed the end of the last ice age, highlights one of the great mysteries of human evolution: the oddness of Europeans. I'm going to go and read that again. The finding that a rare mutation, probably dispersed in the rapid wave of colonization that followed the end of the last ice age, highlights one of the great mysteries of human evolution: the oddness of Europeans. Those from Europe and the Near East have many characteristics that set them apart from the rest of the human race. Not only, and then he goes on to say a whole lot of stuff. But then I'll skip down to another section. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says why this should be remains unknown, and in particular how such mutations could have arisen so quickly, since Europe was colonized by Africans just a few tens of thousands of years ago. This is now the question becomes, and then he closes it and says blondes have more funds, etc. But it is very interesting because it raises 2 points. The first point in our minds, as I read it, was why now? Why is this getting wide circulation now? Secondly, the other thing that I thought about, Mr. Fuller, was this notion of eugenics. What's really being said here? Is this a precursor for this new wave of genetics that's about to be unleashed, where you are breeding, or you're doing selective breeding, and maybe you're setting the stage to say that Europeans are odd and that makes them superior, or white people, it makes them superior and better, and because there's look at how great Frank Sinatra, Paul Newman, and all these folk were, and while they set themselves apart from the rest of human beings, which have dark hair, dark eyes, and a lot of melanin, that is the superior state in which everybody ought to aspire to. Mr. Fuller, I don't know, that's my read on it, and from what I read to you, what goes through your mind when you hear something like this, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I always say anything that's going on that has to do with a white supremacist, if a white supremacist, and I put it in the book that I've written, anything that a white supremacist has anything to do with, I mean, anything that a white person who believes in white supremacy, if they have anything to do with it at all, it always has to do with furthering the cause of white supremacy, which means mistreating people, dominated by dominating them, first of all, in order to mistreat them based on color. In other words, you take the color factor, black, brown, red, yellow people who are classified as non-white by the people who believe in white supremacy, and you're just figuring out newer and better ways to dominate them and mistreat them based on color. That's what a white supremacist does. That's their philosophy of life. That's the thing that makes them get up in the morning and want to do whatever they want to do. Now, if a white supremacist doesn't have anything to do with it, then that's another agenda that we'll have to find out when it plays out. Because when people do things, they have a reason for doing them. When a scientist is doing research, the scientist is trying to find out something. And they're not start trying to find out something just to find it out. They intend to do something with what they find out. So it depends on who are the scientists and what was their objective for doing their quote-unquote research. And last but not least, do they believe in white supremacy? Or do they not? Or do they believe in some other type of supremacy? And the main thing you want to focus on, or should focus on, according to logic, are they planning on mistreating someone, or are they planning on making the world the type of place that it should have been in the first place? Because These are the only choices when you see people in any kind of activity. I don't care what kind of people they are. Are they planning on making things the way that they should be? Or are they planning on mistreating people, which means that the world will be the way that it shouldn't be, which is what it is now? Nothing is the way it ought to be in interaction between people on the planet.
Interesting. Now, and this comes on top of the fact that the president wants, I think, $100 million to map the brain. I'm sure you've heard about that. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Fuller?
I read something on it on page A2 of the Washington Post this morning.
Right. So they're talking about getting a map of the human brain. Now, that's kind of interesting. All of a sudden, we're seeing a lot of these things pop up where things are, you want a map of the human brain, you want to change the way you're admitting some things, you're opening up and talking about blue
President
eyes.
Obama,
Let's take a listen to this clip.
New steps he's going to be taking in terms of scientific investment and research in his State of the Union. And one of those projects is the new Brain Activity Mapping Project. He's going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars over the course of time.
It's already set to get $300 million a year right now, and scientists are hoping that it's significantly more than that.
And that's the former brain mapping project, right, that we have going.
Right.
Barack Obama and the White House has kind of informally announced through the National Health Institute on Twitter that it's going to be a new project, the Brain Activity Mapping Project. And the important thing to note about this is that scientific investment is just, it's the biggest bang for the buck.
It pays. The Human Genome Mapping Project, which was begun in 1990, the government has invested $3.8 billion in that over the course of those 20 or so years since that project was announced. And it has returned $800 billion to the economy. So he said this in the State of the Union, it's like over 100 to 1. For every dollar invested, you get a $100 return or more than that.
Every dollar we invested to map the human genome returned $140 to our economy.
And it looks like the same thing can happen with the brain. This could help us figure out, degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
How we deal with addiction.
All kinds of things. And so this is excellent news, and this is just another sign that President Obama is a scientific president.
Well, Mr. Fuller, all that is always sold in that manner when you want to sell something. But the human brain also, when you map it, you can learn how to get total control and total manipulation and total abuse of a person's mind, even to a greater degree than what already goes on. Mr. Fuller, let me get your response.
Depends on who has control and what the objective is. It always comes down to what a person's ultimate objective is. Most people do not have an ultimate objective, I don't think. That's just my opinion. They just kind of go with whatever the world in which they're born in. They go with whatever they see people are doing. I mean, because, I do that. I see people riding around in something called a car. When I was born, I didn't know anything about a car. So at some point, I'm attracted to a car. Why am I attracted to a car? Because it's there. And it's going down something called a street. So at some point, I will engage with a car because somebody came up with an idea for something called a car. I will get in the car. I will look and see what other people are doing in cars, and I will do what the other people are doing. So all of this is laid out for me before I was born. So I kind of blend in with whatever people are doing. If I see people deciding to get what they call body art in the form of a tattoo, I probably never even thought of anything like that. That never came to my mind as a baby. It never came to my mind much later. But then one day somebody said, hey, why don't you have a picture drawn on your chest? And I say, a picture drawn on my chest for what? Because that's the thing to do. That's the thing to do according to whom? Well, you see other people doing it, don't you? And haven't you always done what you saw other people do? So get a picture on your chest. In fact, I'll do it for you and I'll do it cheap. So I say, well, Well, I do drive cars. I mean, I do walk down streets that other people have made. And if other people have tattoos on their chest, I think I'll get one. So I get one. And that's how most people are on the planet. They do what they see other people do. Most people do not stand back and say, wait a minute, how much sense does this make? I mean, what is going on here? Who is doing the thinking for me? Do I have a brain of my own or do I not? That's a universal question that everybody who intends to be, and this is me talking now, a universal man and a universal woman, you better start doing your own thinking as best you possibly can. Now, it's not easy because we're always tempted to do what we see other people doing, regardless of what it is. And it depends on what your environment is. You will blend right in you'll be on that highway going somewhere without having any idea of what the end is going to be, of what the destination is, unless somebody tells you. And then you'll blend right into that, because most people are this way. And particularly, since we're talking about race and racism, black people have proven that they're that way. And usually, the people who are steering them, in most cases, in this world is dominated by whom? People who believe in white supremacy.
Now,
and
Mr.
so
Fuller,
they steer the courses. So that's the significance, if any, that I see in what you just read.
Mr. Fuller, a lot of people in this, young people in particular, would come back to you on a statement like that, and they would say, no, that's not true. We are the trendsetters. We're the ones that sets the trend. Look at how all the young people are following us in the rap game. Look at how all of them are following us in dress. Look at all the black people in the commercials, from McDonald's to whatever have it. We are the trendsetters. We are the greatest influence on this planet, not white people. What would you say to that, Mr. Fuller?
I would say it's not true. I'll say that it goes to show you just how skillful the white supremacists are. The white supremacists know how to come among black people and have always proven this, and do something particularly, something very detrimental, and then stand back and say, now, you take credit for what I just put in your mind, because it is non-constructive. If there's anything that they're going to hand to non-white people, you better believe it's going to be non-constructive, even though it may not seem to be that way on the surface when it first starts out. Like this degenderization project that they have going now worldwide, full steam ahead, having black people pioneer it.
I just saw where Magic Johnson's son came out, I think, yesterday, and admitted some kind of, and it's like every day now you hear somebody come out and say, well, I'm this, and it's like a steamship that's being purposely built up and being pushed forward. Mr. Fuller.
Who said this?
Magic Johnson, the basketball player.
Yes, sir.
Son came out yesterday, at least it was put in the media, and admitted that he was in a so-called same-sex relationship.
Yes, sir.
And they pumped that up all over the media, man. It was all over the place. And they've been doing that. And another senator came out who was a Republican who had once stood against it, saying that he's changed his, so it's like a snowball effect. Hillary Clinton, all of them, everybody jumping on board, and they're pushing this stuff. Then they bum rushed it up to the Supreme Court, and it's like all of a sudden, where's all this coming from? It's like a bum rushing effect, and this becomes priority over all the ills that we have in the planet. How in God's name does something like this take priority? So that's what you're talking about, if I'm correct. Am I right, Mr. Fuller?
That's what it seems to be, because it seems that, first of all, a question should be raised. Anytime anybody's doing anything, first thing you do is raise questions. Babe is coming to the world raising questions. And one central question that I say that everybody should raise, and that includes, so that we don't get into a long war, or rather a battle, between non-white people among each other, because a lot of this is geared to do that, too. So you got black people who are divided about it, they'll say, on account of their principles and their moral raisings and all like that, that they don't believe in it. Then you got black people who say, well, why not? You should believe in it. So that causes division. But then you look at how did it get started, this division get started. Who is the greater pusher of this division? So it's the usual suspects, the white supremacists. So they're getting all kind of packages done in one swoop. They're causing all kinds of arguments among black people themselves all over the world, and which arguments which may break out later on in the fights, depending on how they want to push it. But the key question is, why are the white supremacists so willing to help non-white people degenderize? That's the way that question should be framed all over the world. Why are the white supremacists so willing to help non-white people degenderize when they're not willing to help you get fed? They're not willing to help you get a roof over your head. They're not willing to help you do anything that you consider to be a priority. But you can degenderize in a minute, and they will give you everything that it will take to help you do that.
It's like it's a rush. Stay right there. More to come on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This program is brought to you by ClaySpace, a passion for pottery, art for the soul. 614-449-8144 or clayspace831.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is now more listener-friendly. We've categorized the programs that air on Talktainment Radio. Friday, comedy and Showtime entertainment.
Classic television theater.
Reverend Peterman, uncensored.
Brown sugar on sports.
Go to TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on programs for times and podcasts. Click Listen Live for current programs being aired. We are the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really?
They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-371-5898, 800-371-5898.
You gotta fight for your right to party.
If you like to party, and who doesn't, you know that sometimes stuff happens. Stuff like assaults, drugs, DUIs. Connie Goodell Newton understands. She's not here to judge anyone, just to provide the best legal representation possible. Facing criminal charges, Connie takes very special care handling her criminal cases and works hard to ensure that her clients receive the very best results possible. Do you have a record? Connie's very familiar with the new expanded expungement statute. Got warrants? Connie may be able to keep you out of jail. Connie also handles domestic relations and mediation cases. Call Connie Goodell Newton from the law firm of Fatrakis and Goodell Newton at 307-9783. Connie welcomes clients from diverse communities, GLBT, African American, activists, students, and more. So party on. Just remember, if you get just one phone call, make it to Connie Goodell Newton at 307-9783 or online at fgnlegal.com.
This is Connie Goodell Newton, and I will fight for your right to party.
ClaySpace. How would you like to explore your creative side with clay in a relaxed and comfortable environment with your friends, family, or coworkers? Visit ClaySpace. Whether a group setting or privately, ClaySpace offers first-class instruction for beginners to the experienced. And what a way to celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, or just about any time you want to party. There's Free Throw Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Mention TalkTapeRadio.com for a free gift. ClaySpace. A passion for pottery, art for the soul. 831 South Front Street, 614-449-8144 or clayspace831.com.
My name is Al Edmondson. I'm a business owner and community organizer. I want to encourage you to visit the King Lincoln District. our community. It's a great place to live, work, and worship. Catch a show at the Lincoln Theater. Enjoy smooth jazz at the King Arts Complex. Enjoy great food and visit our historical churches and newly remodeled homes. Live, work, and worship the King Lincoln District.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I'm Tammy Rager, host of The Now Age and numerologist to the stars. I've got your lucky numbers on Conversate the AM on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:11 a.m. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in TalkTameAtRadio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameAtRadio.com. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week with Mr. Fuller. You can catch us live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's on Wednesdays, live 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Mr. Neely Fuller. Mr. Fuller, if they want to get in touch with your books and they want to get a copy, how can they go about doing it, sir?
Go directly to the computer and put in producejustice.com. Sometimes people have problems remembering that. I tried to make it short and to the point because that's what the book is supposed to be about, ultimately. producejustice.com. And what should come up on your screen is a brief description of the basic book, textbook for victims of white supremacy, and a word guide that's an addition to it. That's producejustice.com.
Okay. producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, as we look at the way things are changing in the world, one of the things that I remember we did a show this past Saturday, on the Saturday show that I do, and one of the persons after the show said to me, it seems like Mr. Fuller is kind of like behind the times. And I said to them, why you say that? And he said, well, just, I don't know, it seems like that's just old stuff. I said, really? I said, in what way is he behind the times? And he couldn't define. I said, I tell you what, let's take a look at the Fortune 500. Let's take a look at the Fortune 1000. Let's take a look at the Forbes 500. Let's take a look at the Forbes 1000. Let's look at all of the major things that create wealth and money and power, the military, et cetera, et cetera. Those things that really, really create the in-chargeness. We can just we start with there and go everywhere else. Tell me why what he says does not apply in 2013. And the guy actually shut up because the evidence is right there in plain sight. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, the question always is a very simple question, and the whole the way you get to answers real quick, simple answers, and accurate answers, and truthful answers, I do believe, is to ask simple, truthful, and accurate questions. Babies come into the world asking questions. This is the formula for getting anything done that needs doing, or a lot of things done that don't need doing, and a lot of things that shouldn't be done. But it always starts with a question. Every scientific endeavor starts with questions. Look up at the sky, and you'll see something called the moon. Maybe you don't even have a name for it. But you ask a question. What in the world is that? Somebody asked that question first time they saw the moon, or the sun, or the leaf on a tree, or an apple, or a rock. What is that? What is it for? Just one question right after another. So, The question when you start talking about racism, and what Neely Fuller says about it, is, does racism exist? Very simple question. And if it does, is there such a thing as white supremacy? Because that's what he talks about all the time. Does it exist or does it not? That's one question. Does it exist, this thing called white supremacy, or does it not? Now, there's no wiggle room there. The answer to that question, there's no wiggle room. It either does or it doesn't. And people have told me, flat out, I have made my studies, and I have come to the conclusion there's no such thing as white supremacy, Fuller. You're making it up. It ain't happening. It doesn't exist. It may have existed at one time or another, but it doesn't exist now. Then I say, well, I have nothing else to say, because I have come to the conclusion that white supremacy does exist, and it is the greatest motivating factor among the non-white people of this planet in all areas of activity 24/7. And when I say areas of activity, I mean economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that statement that I just made just now is either true or false. And if it's false, Neely Fuller is taking up a whole bunch of people's time talking nonsense.
But your evaluation, your research, your understanding, what are some of the key criteria, Mr. Fuller, that you look at to substantiate your concept or your belief that this still exists? What would be some of the key points?
Oh, just the key points are just what I just named, the 9 areas of activity. Anytime I start talking about economics, I'm talking about the use of time and energy. Who decides how black people are going to use their time and energy more than somebody classified as white? That's a question. Who decides how black people, when they get up in the morning and rushing around doing this and that and other, those that have jobs, that don't have jobs, those that are trying to get jobs, who determines? Who determines who's going to work where? Is it somebody on the moon? Is it E.T.? I mean, somebody makes these decisions. And it's been my observation, first of all, that it's somebody white. That doesn't say that that white person is a racist, but I have reason to believe that the racists among the white people are the smartest and most powerful, based on all the evidence I've ever seen. Now, I could be having an illusion about that, but that's how I see it. Just because I say that doesn't make it true, but people can check for themselves. Who do they answer to? If you're black, who do you answer to more than you answer to anybody else when it comes to whether or not you're going to have a job? Either directly or indirectly. You may talk to a black person who is up front. You might be in Central Africa and you're talking to the president of the Congo. But who determines what the president of the Congo does or doesn't do? When he starts talking about he wants to move his ships on the ocean, and he wants to trade here, and he wants to trade there, and he wants to manufacture this and manufacture that. Does he ever talk to anybody white in order to do that? Or does he just get up in the morning and stretch and yawn and says, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not asking nobody nothing? These are questions that need to be answered when you start talking about who's running things. Somebody's running something. Who are the somebodies who make the final decisions? That's just in one area of activity. Then you move, there's 9 of them. Then you move through all of the areas. Who tells black people what to do when it comes to sex? Okay, that's the 8th area of activity. I mean, who's telling them now? What is popular and what isn't?
Right.
Okay, who is telling them? Without me even touching the answer to that question. Who is doing most of the telling? What you black people now should value when it comes to sex is what? This, and this. And just look and see who's doing most of the talking. Who's doing most of the leading? Who is doing all the pioneering? I mean, who's making all the changes? Who?
That's right.
Are you making them? Every black person should say, am I doing all of this? Am I the person who is really moving the world?
Who's moving this, yeah.
Yes.
But the greatest deception, Mr. Fuller, seems to come into the fact that we see black people, as never before, running around seemingly participating in running things. We see it now as we've never seen it. We just heard the other day, Jay-Z signed some New York Yankee, and they prominently display these black names in front of black people as if to say, see, we told you racism doesn't exist anymore. See, anybody with half a gut, with half an initiative can get up and do the same thing. This is America, land of the free, home of the brave. This is what's being touted constantly, Mr. Fuller.
I've heard that even when I was on the back of the bus. Now, you might say that black people caused the back of the bus to be desegregated. Black people protested. Black people marched, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But see, when you start talking about white supremacy, you have to talk about really emphasizing the word supreme. Who makes the final decision? I sat on the back of the bus, and Rosa Parks sat down, and she said, I'm not moving. And she was arrested. Now, suppose the white supremacists had said, when Martin Luther King was marching, you know what? I am not going to ever let you people sit on the front of the bus, ever. And you say, well, we will keep protesting until you do. Now, suppose the white supremacists were really serious. There have been some people on this planet who, when they are really serious, they can make their point manifest in about 5 minutes. Now, how successful? People should ask themselves this question. The white supremacists were ready to start making some moves, limited moves, even where the schools were concerned. They know their limits, just like in the movie Gandhi. People should take a note from that. What would that person in the Viceroy's office in India said back during Gandhi's time? He said, the question now is how much we will allow Mr. Gandhi to have and how much we won't allow him to have. See, so after World War II in this area of the world, they decided, well, we can't have airplanes. We're going to have separate airplanes for separate airports for black people, because eventually that's what will come. Are we going to have a separate army and a separate navy? We're going to have entire fleets of aircraft carriers manned by nothing but black people? Come on. That won't work. Suppose they get to be renegades. Now we got a problem on our hands. And they will be skilled, too, because we'll teach them. We'll teach them from top to bottom. It won't be any white people on any of these aircraft carriers, except the ones that are all white. All white aircraft carriers, all black aircraft carriers. A separate army that's complete, a separate navy, a separate coast guard. Everything separate. All the schools separate. Every restaurant separate. Every hotel separate. Everything. Black people and white people don't come in contact with each other at any level. Everybody's separate in everything. And so they said, this is not going to work in the long run. So we will, what you call, agree to desegregate. We'll do it slowly, but we will still be in control. See, we are in control under so-called segregation. We are in control there. We don't let these black people, just because they're on the other side of town, run around and do whatever they want to do. That never has been. And if we mingle with them, even in the bedroom, keep control. Don't ever lose control. Doesn't make any difference about proximity, how close you stand to a person, or whether or not you sit beside a person. The whole idea is who makes the final decision. Do you let a black person make the final decision, or do you let a white person make the final decision to maintain white supremacy? And so you conclude it's going to always be a white person who makes the final decision. Now, you'll let maybe 15 million black people make elementary decisions and give them a big desk and put a cigar in their mouths and have them going back and forth in a swivel chair and acting like they are in charge of everything, but they will be acting, even though they don't know that they're acting, because they only can do whatever we tell them to do, and we come in every now and then and lean over their shoulder and say, now you will do this. We will be like in Godfather 1, Luca Brasi. He comes in and put a gun to your head if you start doing something that they don't want you to do, and every black person understands that. You do this, and you're out of business, boy. I don't care how big your title is, because you got to remember who put you in that position. Remember who put you in that position. You'll say, well, no, I was voted by my constituents, and my constituents were black. Boy, you can't reason at all. You can't reason at all. I'm the one who set up the voting booth. I'm the one who put your campaign out front. You forget who your boss is. Wake up and smell the coffee, Negro.
Stay right there. More to come on the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is now more listener-friendly. We've categorized the programs that air on Talktainment Radio.
Get up, get down Saturday.
The Jazz Man.
Super
cool. Melting Pot Blues. Pink Pearl Man.
Go to TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on programs for times and podcasts. Click Listen Live for current programs being aired. We are the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard.
I get my hair cut at Fees. Me and Dr. Peterman go there all the time. Dr. Peterman?
Well, let me get the thing straight. I don't get my hair cut. I get my hair styled.
I don't know what to laugh about besides my prices is so low. You can't beat them. My name is Felicia Humphrey, better known as Fifi. I am a licensed barber. I went to Ohio State Barber College. Been doing it for a while now, so it's 22 years. Fee's Barber Studio. It's at 3469 East Livingston Avenue. It's between Barnett and Kennard on the east side of Columbus. Yeah, I'm going to cut your hair the way you want it cut, not the way I want it cut. Faves, tapers, afros, beard trims, designer cuts, children's cuts, babies cuts, whatever kind of cut you like. Walk-ins are welcome. You can make an appointment with me, mornings and nights. First-time clients, I take $5 off haircuts, $5 off children. If you come with a family, we definitely can make a deal with you. With the third cut, it's always half off.
Cuts by appointment. Call 614-515-0803 and walk-ins welcome. That's Fee's Barber Studio, 3469 East Livingston Avenue.
You gotta fight for your right to party.
If you like to party, and who doesn't, you know that sometimes stuff happens. Stuff like assaults, drugs, DUIs. Connie Goodell Newton understands. She's not here to judge anyone, just to provide the best legal representation possible. Facing criminal charges, Connie takes very special care handling her criminal cases and works hard to ensure that her clients receive the very best results possible. Do you have a record? Connie's very familiar with the new expanded expungement statute. Got warrants? Connie may be able to keep you out of jail. Connie also handles domestic relations and mediation cases. Call Connie Goodell Newton from the law firm of Petrakis and Goodell Newton at 307-9783. Connie welcomes clients from diverse communities, GLBT, African American, activists, students, and more. So party on. Just remember, if you get just one phone call, make it to Connie Goodell Newton at 307-9783 or online at fgnlegal.com.
This is Connie Goodell Newton, and I will fight for your right to party.
Hey, can I tell you something?
Sure, what is it?
I want to tell you about someone being cyberbullied.
What is cyberbully?
Cyberbully is when someone is being bullied over the internet and this person can't take it and is thinking about suicide.
Have you told someone?
No, I haven't told anyone but you. It's not my business, is it?
Yes, it is. Tiberius says it's okay to tell the proper authorities. You must tell.
You're right. It is okay to tell, and I might even be able to save her life.
Good, because if you don't tell, I will, because cyberbullying is abuse.
Thanks. I'm going to tell now.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The women we love, the women who love us, they are dying. Heart disease is our #1 killer, taking more lives than all forms of cancer combined. But we have the power to save those lives, our lives, because the greatest force for women is women. It's time to stand together, to fight harder, to shout louder. It's time to go red for women.
This is S. Yolanda Robinson, host of All in Our Family. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Join us on April the 13th at 2 o'clock p.m. when Franklin County Children's Services will talk about the differences between discipline and child abuse.
This year, firefighters like Fire Chief James Hall will battle wildfires around the country in hopes of containing them. But firefighters can't do it alone.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile, where it can ignite and destroy your home and community.
Get fire adapted. Learn simple steps you can take now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
I'm Tammy Rager, host of The Now Age and numerologist to the stars. I've got your lucky numbers on Conversate in the AM on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:11 a.m. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in talktainmentradio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
Yes, justice is better than racism. This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. Joining us, of course, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. live is Mr. Neely Fuller. And you can go and listen to the podcast by going to talktainmentradio.com, going to programs, pulling up the compensatory concept, and there you will have the programs that you will want. We're running just a little bit behind, but we're in the process of getting caught up because we've had some things that we're doing a little bit differently. So just be patient with us, and you'll soon get the latest programming. In addition to that, we've got some other special things coming up, which I'll tell you about in future shows. But, Mr. Fuller, as we go to the final half, the last 12 minutes of the show, I want to turn that over to you, and I want you, there might be some special thing that you've looked at that you want to talk about. So let's open it up to you, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
All right, well, we can start almost anywhere. I mean, it's like a white man in Alabama, I think, said it during the 1960s. He said, this race issue is complicated. It's like a rattlesnake. Any place that you pick it up, even behind the head, is still complicated. And it's been made complicated because when you make something complicated and you are the master of making things complicated, people will be, what? Confused. So that's why I have in the front of my book, in both the basic book and the word guide, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. And I'm saying the system of white supremacy dominates what black people on this planet do every minute of every day, wherever they happen to be. That's all of the people who the white supremacists classify as non-white. And by the way, they do the classifying. Just recently, they went along with the idea that you can drop the word Negro. So I heard. Now, they went along with it. When I say they, I mean the white supremacists. Now, who are they? I don't know them by name, because I have no way of proving that any white person believes in white supremacy, which proves that there is such a thing as white supremacy. Why do I say that? Because if anybody who tries to prove the very existence of white supremacy, and the white supremacists themselves say it doesn't exist, who can I go to? Who can Neely Fuller go to prove that it does exist? The only way you can prove the existence of white supremacy in a so-called court of law is that your proof has to be proven by or backed up by someone who is a white supremacist, which means itself that there is such a thing as white supremacy. Now, that should be obvious to everybody by now, but I can understand why it wouldn't be. Because when you're born in water and you're a fish, you're not even aware of the water because you're born in there. Or a better illustration is, if you're born in prison and that's all you know, the only thing you know is prison, but you don't think of the prison as being a prison. It's like Morgan Freeman said in Shawshank Redemption, said you become institutionalized. You're born institutionalized if you're black, because you're born into a world that's dominated by the white supremacists. So you are in the institution of white supremacy when you're born. White supremacy is not something you run into every now and then. Racism is not something that you encounter every now and then on a job. The whole job is racist because you're in a racist world.
And Mr. Fuller, that is very significant right there. And I think I've heard you say in lectures, stop. I want you to stop right there and repeat just what you said, because I think that's where 90% of what needs to be understood is missed. So if you could repeat that and elaborate on that, that would help a lot. Mr. Fuller.
Well, I just gave the illustration of a job, but I'm saying a person will say, I ran into some racists on the job the other day. I think there's some racism going on in that place where I work. Racism is the job. The whole thing is racist because the whole world is racist. There's nothing on this planet that's going on that is not racist. By racist, I mean what? That is not being orchestrated either directly or indirectly by those white people. Here again, I want to emphasize, not all white people. I never said that, but it's being conducted by those white people who have perfected the institution of white supremacy. That was a choice, and it took them quite a while to get it together, but when they did, it turned out to be the greatest political and religious force that the world has ever known. There's no religious system on this planet right now that's stronger than the religion of white supremacy. I want to repeat that. There's no religion anywhere on this planet. I don't care if you mention Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Sokogakia, Mormonism. I don't care what ism you come up with. When the white supremacists speak, everybody jumps. That's what you go by. When they speak, everybody jumps. Everybody falls in line. Everybody starts running. They're trying to get their babies in their arms and running across the desert. And they're reciting their religious creeds and all like that. But they are running from the white supremacists if the white supremacist says, you better run, because I will put a hurting on you. Yes, there is a God somewhere, but I'm your God, and you will obey me. That's the white supremacist creed. If you have dark skin, you will obey me. I don't care who you pray to. I don't care who you clap your hands to. I don't care how many hosannas you sing in your elaborate churches. when I step in that church and say, everybody out of here, you better get out of there. You better get out of there, and you know it. And you know it not by Neely Fuller telling you this, but by your own experience. In fact, you can't even establish a church without my permission. I'm your Roman emperor, and you ain't figured out how to get me out of that position yet, which means I'm smarter than you are, all of you put together, all of you black, brown, red, yellow people on this planet don't have nothing for me, because when I speak, you jump, and that's proof that I'm supreme. And you can talk about all that ancient building the pyramids all you want to, and I will tell you, yeah, have fun. Talk about how you did this and how you did that. But when I tell you to get up out of that chair, you will move. When I tell you to sit down, you will sit in that chair, and you won't move until I say so. And I prove this every day. Neely Fuller doesn't have to tell you. Just get in my face, and you'll find out in about 2 seconds who your God is. And I've always proven this. Now, this is the voice of the people who believe in white supremacy. I've never seen anybody who didn't back down when they decide to get rough. When they really decide to get rough. Now, sometimes people get in their face and say all kinds of things. But it's one thing, if you're intelligent, have a little bit of intelligence, you'll notice the white supremacists don't move until they get ready. They may give you eventually what you are asking for, which will probably be something that is loaded with booby traps. Once you get it, it's going to be loaded with poison. It's not going to be exactly what you thought it was. Like they offered us school integration. Where is it and what does it mean? It doesn't even have a definition. It doesn't have a definition. And here it is 60 years later. We're still squabbling about education. We're still saying, where is our education? Where is the payoff for our education?
Well, I just saw just the other day, for example, where you had these teachers in Atlanta who, well, not only the teachers, the superintendent, all of them are being hauled into jail, allegedly because of some, cheating or changing grade scores. I'm sure you saw that, Mr. Fuller.
Sure, it's all kind of what do the racists do more than anything, and they're experts at it, because once you do that, you always have control, and that is the key word here is confusion. Anytime you are the master of confusion among any people, anytime you can cause more confusion than anybody else, you will always be dominant, because people who are confused can be dominated. If 10 people are in a room, you can run this experiment yourself. You're the only person who knows where the fire exit is. And the fire bell goes off. And you're the only person who knows where the fire exit is, and there's 10 people in that room. Mathematics says, who is the most powerful person in that room? 9 people are scrambling around, running into the wall, screaming and yelling. The smoke is getting thicker and whatnot. But you are calm. Why? Because you know where the fire exit is. So you're the most powerful person in that room. And the rest of the people in that room, running down the hall, running down in the basement, running to the top of the building, and then coming back down when they can't get out, they are what? One word, confused. But when you step forward, you're not a genius. You just happen to know where the fire exit is. But for all practical purposes right now, you are the smartest person in the world to those other 9 people. And the white supremacists understand that principle. That's all it is. It's a principle. They make sure that they know all of the essentials, and they make sure that you don't if you're black. And that's all it takes. When they know things that you don't know. When they have organized in such a way that you don't even know what they are doing. So it's not magic. It's science. The system of white supremacy is scientific. So I will very calmly, if I am the controlling person in that room, and I am the controlling person, I'll say, okay, folks, stop running, stop screaming, be calm, follow me down this corridor. The fire exit is down here in this unmarked door. You've been running all past it. Why is the door unmarked? Because I saw to it that it was unmarked. That's how I got control.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I will very confident that I am.
You got the power. Radio, the way it should be heard.